Hey guys, I hope that you and your families are doing well. I'm excited to get into week 2 of our devotional study entitled Willing, which is all about the life of Philip. And today we're going to be looking at this first area of willingness in his life, a willingness to serve. In Acts chapter 6, we get a picture of Philip's first ministry opportunity, and that took place at the church in Jerusalem. Now remember, this was the very first church that ever started. After Peter preached that first message that we see in Acts chapter 2, thousands and thousands of people are saved. And so this church, Christ's church, goes from maybe a dozen people or a few dozen people to thousands and thousands of people almost overnight. And in just a few weeks, this is an enormous church with many people that are part of it that have huge needs in their lives. And one of the needs that we see in Acts chapter 6 is that there's a group of older ladies and widows who are not being cared for sufficiently. And that kind of opened up the apostles' eyes to understand that there were some really big needs in this church, some physical and just practical life needs that they needed help with. And so the apostles decided that they were going to find 7 men to step in and be willing to take care of these needs. And Philip was one of the 7 men that was willing to step forward and serve in this way. Now think about this with me. This wasn't an exciting assignment. This wasn't something that was probably even that enjoyable. This was something that was behind the scenes, involved a lot of just grunt work and serving, whether it was waiting tables or doing stuff in people's houses or helping them with just practical needs in their lives. There wasn't a lot of fanfare and excitement about this, but Philip and these other guys stepped forward and they were willing to serve in this way. And interestingly, what we see is that after these guys are chosen and they're empowered and they start working and serving in this way, the Bible takes that opportunity to say again, the church continued to grow. And really, that's no surprise, because in order for us as a church or really any organization to grow, there have to be people that are willing to serve behind the scenes, doing the things that maybe most people don't want to do. And Philip was one of those people. He had a heart for service. Now, as I look at this passage, there are a few questions that come to my mind that I think that we should take some time to think about. First, who are some folks in your church, or maybe even in our youth group, that do things that are maybe behind the scenes, things that you don't really think about? Maybe you see them or notice them, but they're not out front, out in it, just easy to see and with a lot of fanfare. Who are those people in our church and even in our youth group? Can you think of some? Can you think of members of your family that do certain things to just make life work for other people, and there's not a lot of fanfare or heraldry for them? They just do it because they want to serve. You know, we have these people in our lives. They're serving us all the time, and many times we don't take the time to think about them. But let me ask you this. Why do you think that people like that are willing to serve in such behind the scenes ways? What is it about their hearts and their lives that makes them willing to do that? Are they super special, super Christians that are just so unique? Or is this something that each one of us can be growing and manifesting in our lives? And one more question that I thought of as I looked at this passage was, why do you think that God waited until later to have Philip preach to multitudes and do miracles? You know, this is the very first instance of ministry that we see from Philip. And notice, God didn't take him right to this public ministry with fanfare. He started him out in Acts chapter 6 with working and serving behind the scenes with some older ladies and widows who were in need, and just finding a way to meet the practical daily life needs of other people. Why do you think God had him learn this area of service before preaching to multitudes and doing miracles like we talked about last week? So as we think through those things, as I thought through those questions, what I came to understand is that this is a heart attitude thing. This is a choice thing. I need to grow in this, in being someone that's willing to serve behind the scenes. We all do. This is an area of humility, obedience, willingness that God calls all of us to grow in. So I have some homework for us this week. First, I want you to think of someone in your life or your family or maybe your church that serves behind the scenes. I want you to think of a person, and then I want you to reach out to them and thank them for that. Maybe you'll do it with a card or a phone call or a text or an email, whatever way is most appropriate. Think of somebody that serves behind the scenes, that has a heart for humble service, that's willing to serve, and reach out to them and just thank them for that service. Then the second piece of homework that I have for us this week is for each of us to look at our family life or maybe our church life, our youth group life, and find one thing that isn't happening or that you don't see happening that needs to happen, one area of service. So maybe you see something in your family where there's an opportunity for service and no one's stepping up right now. Maybe it's kind of a thankless or unpleasant role. Step into that role this week and serve others. Maybe it's behind the scenes. Maybe it's nasty or gross work. It's just something that has to be done. Step up and do that this week. Maybe you can think of something in our youth group. We can't be together right now, but there are ways that we can serve each other. Maybe you can think of some way that people aren't being served the way that they should. Reach out and do that this week. Reach out to me. I'd love to talk about that, ways that we can serve each other. But as we look at this first 7 verses of Acts chapter 6, I think it's going to be really good for us this week to, number 1, think of people who are already serving in this way. And then number 2, find opportunities for us each individually to serve this way as well. I hope this was a blessing to you. Let's be humble servants this week as we seek to glorify God with our lives.